Welcome to Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune in to what matters. This is where we reimagine the way we and the world work by bringing together wisdom, leadership, and well-being. I'm your host, Arylo, and I'm so excited to be here as with you all for this very special episode. It's one of our 4 Power Pause episodes that happen every 4 months, every 12 weeks. On the equinoxes and the solstices, because one of the things that we do here at Feminine Power Time is we practice cyclical living, or what I call when I'm working with my teams in the corporate world and the business world, cyclical strategic planning. I just like cyclical living better. We're going to go with that right now because it is a little bit of a tongue twister. Or even in my own business, that's what I do as an entrepreneur is cyclical strategic planning, or what I like to call pathing. And cyclical living is one of those things that's going to seem so simple that it's like, oh, could that really make a difference? I don't know. So Christine, what do you talk about cyclical living, what does that mean? It means working in harmony with the natural cycles of the way the earth naturally works, because when we work like the earth works, because we're actually part of nature, as it turns out, then the things that we create come into more harmony. It's not a magical panacea that, if I just do this, all will be good in my life and nothing bad will ever happen, or there will be no challenges or no struggle. That's not what I'm talking about, because that's not real, you all. And we all know that, right? It's a bunch of BS that just sounds good on a marketing page. But what's real is that as life happens, as it does, when we practice cyclical living yearly, monthly, or moonly, as we like to say, yearly, which is on the 4 quarter points, and then the cross quarter points, and then weekly with our kind of upshifting into the week and downshifting into the weekend, and then also daily with the sun. We rise with the sun and we set it downshift with the sun going down and the moon showing herself. And so those 4 rhythms, when we put them into place by things like what we're going to do today, which is one of our Power Pause episodes, this one specifically for the equinox, is when we're moving through uncertainty, when we are, which is basically all of our lives, like this notion that we're going to come to a place of certainty and everything's going to be known is also not real. One of the things I have just been doing this week and next week is I do power pauses with teams. And one of the exercises that we do is I have them talk about what do we know, what don't we know, and then what do we want to do about it. And it's so enlightening for them because they get a chance to actually speak out loud, all of those things that are like creating pressure and anxiety on the inside, and then be able to actually talk about all the things that they do know, which is more than they think, and then really look at that and be like, what can we control? What can we influence? And what is completely out of our control and we just need to surrender? I do that for myself. I do that with my own business. And then we're going to do that partly today here with you all, because those things create what I like to call invisible pressure in us. And then the outpouring of that is the soft addictions and the numbing and the over excesses and all of the overs and the anxiety and the worry and the frustration and the irritation. So this equinox power pause is a little bit like, it's like a nice cleanse, a gentle one for your mind, body, heart, and spirit. But it's also really awesome because what it does and where it's going to help us do is really get focused on what matters most to you this last quarter of the year. To pause and say, okay, like where do I want to put my energy? Where do I want to put my life force? Where do you want to put your resources? Because what you choose to put your resources on in this last quarter and your focus on is really going to make a difference for how you roll into the next calendar year or the next, whether that's the lunar calendar or the kind of linear time-based Roman calendar. When we go into the next year cycle, what you put your energy to is going to have impact on that. And for those of you that tuned into the cross-quarter point feminine wisdom session I did around Lammas, which is August 1st, where we stop in and celebrate the harvest that we're receiving because of what we did the following August, September, October, November. We're already planting things and tending to things that are going to bear fruit if we were farmers, but we kind of think of it like our lives bear fruit because of what you're choosing, where you're putting your energy at. The other thing that's really powerful about this equinox power pause is that it's also a time to pause and right the imbalances. So one of the things that I love about traditional Chinese medicine, I love about Ayurveda, and I love about cyclical living, which they both really do when they're operating from the true spirit of that technology, is that it helps us right the imbalances before they become disease or disaster or drama or divorce. And so one of the things we do at both the March equinox and the September equinox, and then whenever you're listening to this, it's like, oh, I missed the equinox. It's all good, you all. There's never a time when it's not good to stop and take a harmony adjustment and really look at where the imbalances are. So we'll do a mini power pause around that. We do the full power pause, actually be happening in 2 days with the Feminine Wisdom Way and in the leadership groups I run. So if you're thinking about being interested in cyclical living and actually applying this to your life, to your business, to your career, to your relationships, etc., consider joining us in next year for the Feminine Wisdom Way. So we will be doing it again, and it's a great structure that holds us in our lives. But Noah and I just did this today. We also do these for couples, and we were doing it, of course, for ourselves, and just being able to have some honest discussions about the imbalances that are kind of present in our relationship right now. So you can think about that, and we'll kind of end there today of like, what are the imbalances in your relationships? And those could be in a primary partnership, or perhaps, you don't have a primary partnership and it's something that you desire. It could be in friendships. It could be in your relationship to work. And looking at those imbalances and saying, you know what, this isn't really working for me. So I'm going to make a shift first within myself. And then I'm going to start to reset expectations and arrangements and clarify them. So Noah and I we like to call it a heart-to-heart over coffee on our couch this morning for about an hour and a half, and had a really heart-to-heart, honest conversation. And it was good. It was catalyzing. And we do that on a regular basis so that we don't have to wait for the big, crazy blow up that ends up in drama and or disaster. So that's another part of why we pause. And I'm sharing this with you all as we go into this, because I want to talk to your intellect first, and then I'm going to bring you into your intuition and your instinct and some dropping in some insight. We call this the 4 eyes. So when I'm teaching wisdom and full body intelligence, one of the things that I talk about is a model I created called the 4 eyes. And so that includes intellect, insight, instinct, and intuition. We actually need all 4 of them. And in our kind of mainstream culture, we overvalue the intellect and we undervalue the insight and the intuition, and kind of get confused about instinct. And so we're going to touch on all of those today just within this process. And one of the things I am considering as I'm looking into where I'm going to be focusing at, I've been wanting to do a course on intuition and decision making for some time. And I've just been waiting. It's been a seed that's been sitting in my garden for years now. So we'll see if that one sprouts. So stay tuned on that. And the last thing I'll say about the equinox and what's really helpful as we look into this last quarter is that you also have what we like to call twiggly danglers. This is a word I learned from one of my teachers, Arylo Spilsbury, and she loves words just like I do, and she makes up fun words like twiggly dangler. Twiggly danglers are just like those little niggly things that need attention, but you've kind of put it off. So it could be something related to bookkeeping, or oftentimes for me in the past, it's been about, did I, go see my OBGYN? Did I go to the dentist? Did I do those appointments? For me this year, it was going to the dermatologist and actually getting all my like the body scan to get all the skin stuff checked to make sure my skin's all good. And so I've been doing this for so long, I proactively scheduled that in early September, knowing that fourth quarter is really when, if there's any of those twiggly danglers, I want to get them done. So this is what we call using healthy time pressure. And for those of you that have Overwhelmed and Over It, you should check out section 4 that has a whole section on healthy time pressure. And what that means is that we can use this time span between now and the end of the calendar year, or now in December solstice, and say, okay, what are those things that are like, you should pay attention to this, you should pay attention to this, you should pay attention to this. And so those are kind of the 3 or 4 things that we do every equinox. And so I'm really inviting you into this podcast, which is, my gift to all of you to help support you in cyclical living. Oftentimes we don't even know what it is, or we've been doing it and we didn't even know that's what we were doing it. And then if this, jives for you and you like it, to invite you to be part of our bigger co-creative community. If that's something you'd like to do in the next year, we'd love to support you in that too. All right. So let's take a breath. We just kind of slow it down here for a moment. Maybe another exhale. So we have to call take a breath, take a beat, so that you can be here now. I wanted to give you all of that kind of information and knowledge so we can drop into the wisdom around this, and this to be a really somatic experience for you all. So as we go into this, I'm going to invite you to kind of think of it could either be the next 3 months or the next 4 months. One of the things that we do in cyclical living and at the equinoxes is we actually say, okay, so what's the time span I want to work with? So is it between now and December solstice, or is it between now and the first quarter point of the calendar year, which usually falls right around the Chinese lunar new year, the first new moon of the year. And so that will be around the 1st of February. I think the lunar new year this year is the 29th of January. So you can kind of I love to kind of think of a time. Sometimes thinking of the end of the year, just to the 21st, really works for me. And sometimes, I want a little bit more space. And so I choose February 1st. So I sat down today with my Flow Your Year journal, which is a journal I created that walks you through all the cyclical living stuff. I was like, I'm going to give myself to the 1st of February and then see that kind of just feels more spacious this year. So go ahead and just pick your time span between now and December solstice, which is about the 21st, or between now and, let's say, February 1st, which is the first cross quarter point, the time when we emerge to start seeding. We work all of January. We kind of dive in internally all of January and the end of December to reflect and get clear on what wants to come forward. And then we set our intentions around the 1st of February. So just kind of feel into that for yourself. And we're going to start with the focus piece then. I'm kind of going to bring together focus and the twiggly danglers. So just close your eyes for a moment if you can, or just bring all of your energy into yourself. And I just want you to imagine yourself standing here, wherever you're listening to this, and kind of sending out this time span for the next 9 weeks or the next 12 weeks or the next 3 months or the next 4 months. And we like to see it as a rainbow, and where you have a start, a completion date, and then in the center is a midpoint. And there's an image of this inside of Overwhelmed and Over It in the section on Liberate Your Life Force or Liberate Your Time. But it looks like a rainbow that you're basically walking underneath it. So it creates space because it's an arc, right? Versus just a line where you're pushing forward through each month, October, November, December, and you're just pushing through to the end of the year, and you kind of just fall off a cliff and then start the new year as if the last year didn't count. And one of the reasons we work with cyclical living, and I do cyclical strategic planning for teams and also with my leadership clients, is that we work from momentum. So one of the beautiful things about most wisdom, all wisdom tradition I've ever studied is it works with the circle. And you can think of, yin yang is in a circle. You can think of lots of different things they're in circles. And the circle is because it actually is a cycle. It's a start and an end to it. But you don't just stop then and create another circle. It actually looks more like a spiral that continues to go up and it continues to expand. And we take all of that stuff from what we've given our energy and our effort to, what you've given your energy and effort to, just in the last, 9 to 10 months, as well as even all of the years prior to bring you here. And you get to create from that place. So as you look into this next 3 or 4 months, the next 9 weeks or 12 weeks, it's like really saying to yourself, oh, I'm creating from momentum. And I'm just breaking down this into a smaller time span that's actually manageable, right? 9 weeks, 12 weeks, so much easier to work with than what's going to happen, after this event, after this event, after this event. It's like all the way in June, who knows, it's like, so if we can break it down, then we feel more empowered. We actually are in what we call co-creative process. So just feel that for yourself and feel the momentum behind you. This is also really helpful if you're thinking of any changes that you're making in your life. So just kind of think of the shifts that you're thinking of making, or perhaps the things that you're opening yourself up to. I have a couple women I work with one-on-one right now, leaders, but their careers are going pretty well. They're really focused right now on the realm of beloved relationship and they really would both like to have a partner. And so one of them is starting to date, and another one is getting ready to get ready to maybe go out there. So in process. But the momentum that they're both creating from is all of the internal work that they've done. They've done deep internal work to really come into alignment with themselves, to remove any of the interference, the love cracks, the choosing relationships from the wound versus wholeness. And so it's not like, when you think about, I have to go back out there, it's like, no, you're actually just stepping out of you're stepping out into the world because you've been in this internal world doing all this internal work and healing and integrating and aligning so that what you choose next will really support you in your own elevation. So you can think about that for yourself. Like perhaps for you, it's been internal pieces that you've been doing that you're going to choose this next 9 weeks, 12 weeks to I'm creating for momentum and to really feel that, feel that all that inner working that's happening within you. It might be happening in a career shift for you. That's what's happening with Noah right now. And he thinks about just stepping into the field and not tapping into all of the work that we've done over the last 10 years working with couples. So we're going to be doing some co-creative couple work most likely in 2025. And he's magical at it. Like he's one of the most, I would be like a disaster in relationship if it wasn't for him. I bring the strategy stuff. He brings the relational part, and together we create this magic. But if he's just feeling like he's starting from nothing versus starting from all the internal work and all of the things that we've done together over the last 10 years that make him super qualified to work with co-creative couples and couples in business, because we've been in business together for 17 years. It's like he feels like he's starting from scratch, versus all of that coming forward with him. So how might that look for you? Like, are there things that you're stepping into perhaps in your work that are things you've been doing, but maybe you're going to put it into a different kind of field? And if you can feel that in your being, it's going to be easier to step into that. And then I think lastly, I would say as we look into these 12 weeks or 9 weeks, the other common theme I'm seeing, so this might resonate for you, is there's some people who are completing cycles. I have a couple friends and also some executives that I work with who have been, really working, I hate using the word working hard, but they have been, in the last 6 years, putting a lot of energy into the company that they work with and growing their careers and actually actualizing in pretty big roles within the organization and industry that they work in. And there's a shift that's going on in that company, and they're going to take a spacer, what we might call a sabbatical. Instead of just signing up for the next cycle, they're looking at how can I what do I need? What do I want? And this has happened for me too. It's you all know I've been on a sabbatical of sorts from actually creating new content since May 1st. And it brings up some fear for most of us when we're I'm going to take a spacer. And even today, it's not as normal, right? It's in my world, it's to stop creating content is death. And if you're in a career, people think, oh, what do you mean you're not just going to keep moving into the next step or take the next bigger job? And it takes a lot of courage, you all, to go against the machine and go against the collective consciousness to really do what's right for you. And sometimes it is right to really, amp it up and keep going. And sometimes it's actually, I need to take a step back and really take a survey of what's important to me and what I desire in this next cycle. And so that might be going on for you now. And so looking at then these next 9 to 12 weeks in any of those cases is how can that support what you're already creating momentum for? And where is that energy wanting to go? So this is what we do at Equinox. We don't make anything wrong for how you've spent your energy the first 9 months of this calendar year. It's like, oh, or even the last couple years, you can go back even more than just this last 9 months. It's like, oh, something's calling for a shift in my focus. So I'm going to ask you about this in just 2 of the 4 realms that we work with in co-creation, which are your well-being foundation of home, health, and wealth, your relationships, professional, personal, individual, and community, your work in the world, which includes your vocation, your profession, your job, your career, as well as your caretaking and your creative self-expression, your mentoring, and then also in your own presence. That's the 4th one, your own joy and radiance and growth and influence in the world just through being who you are. But I just want to focus on well-being and work in the world here. So as you're standing here looking forward into this time span that we've now co-created, I want you to take a breath and just ask yourself the question, what do I really desire to focus on in my well-being foundation in these next 9 to 12 weeks in this time span? And just take a moment and really sense into your well-being from a health perspective. Body, mind, heart, and spirit. Feeling any momentum that you've already created, or this might be the time to spark the momentum, but maybe hearkening back to a time when you had some momentum. Sometimes the momentum wanes, and that's okay. We just want to pick it back up. So where do you really desire to focus your life force and resources in this next time span? And then let's take a look around your financial flow and your wealth and your relationship to money and the material realm. Where would you really love to focus your energy, and where is your energy being called? There's this other part, right? We can sense it. Instinctually, we sense when the universe, and I would say our higher selves, who's are programmed to live out our dharma and our destiny, so we feel it, we see signs, of it. There's little serendipitous things that happen, or we can just sense it inside, and it usually requires some honesty from ourselves. Or some things we might not want to give, so that sometimes we can meet it with resistance, right? So just noticing if there's any resistance in any of these places, or we could be like, I just don't know how to do it, and then feel like we're all on our own. And I always say, like, that is the moment you got to reach out and touch somebody. Like, you got to reach out and actually find support, especially in these areas of well-being and work in the world. When you feel like you're isolated and it's all on your own, or you don't have the right support, it can be overwhelming. Just talking to a very good friend of mine who is struggling with some things with her well-being, and the practitioner that she's working with, we're slightly convinced may be a narcissist, because for several reasons. And we're just not sure if that person is the right person for her in helping her really get to the root of what's going on. And she has some resistance to going into the root and wanting to kind of, continue to work with this person for the time being. She's just in her process, but it was great to have a self-honesty conversation. And she's an amazing human. And so she's like, she called her name. She's like, this is a confessional, and just confessing the things. And so it's really okay to, if you have any resistance around these, just to name it, that these are my fears. These are my resistance that's coming up. I have them too. But what I do, and why I set that container for May 1st to end of to equinox, to put my creatrix on vacation, sabbatical, and then have Jennifer to be here with you all over this Stay Light season, was so that I could gain some clarity about what's truly right for me. And I will emerge after the equinox and start to play with that, and then create another container between equinox and equinox. And so it's like, this is how it kind of rolls. So just really, feeling into that just for this next 4 months, like, where does that, or 3 months, where does that energy want to go financially? And then also focus on your practice. This is another piece of our well-being foundation, is our practice. And where is the focus for your practice wanting to go? And then lastly is health, wealth, home. And just feeling the desire. We're starting with desire today. Oftentimes I start with the imbalance, but I felt like we should start with desire today. Is like, what is the desire you have around home that would be even an incremental thing that you could focus on, would love to focus on in these next 9 to 12 weeks? Some of the things I see with people with home is like there's so many things that becomes overwhelming. But like you can ask yourself, like, what matters most right now? And then incremental progress gets made versus procrastination or overwhelm. So just feeling into those 4 parts of your well-being foundation. And you can press pause here and jot down some notes if you want, or just kind of let that land. It really does help writing it down on paper. This is why I created the Flow Your Year journal. And I also have some smaller guidebooks that I work with teams and share with my personal leadership clients. I'll post up the personal leadership one that I do up on my blog, on my wisdom library on my website. So you should be able to find it there. And I'll put a link into the show notes as well at some point, so that you can all have access to that. And so let's take a look at your work in the world and the full spectrum of what that means, right? From your career and your vocation to your job, to your profession, and also to the other parts of your work that are more invisible and usually not paid financially, that are part of your creative expression, that are part of your mentoring, that are part of your advocacy, that are part of your parenting or caretaking of parents. Those don't usually receive dollar amounts. We get paid in other ways for those things. One of the women in Feminine Wisdom Way, we gather on the full moons to kind of work all of these feminine superpowers and like actually apply it to our life. And she had this great conversation about one of the imbalances that she saw was that she's also has a profession in the healing arts, and she's also a mother. And right now her primary focus has been on raising her son. And that doesn't obviously create money, but her family moved and she is the primary caretaker, and her partner has a very time consuming job. And it just was beautiful to see her have a breakthrough around like, I get paid, her son actually came into the room while we were in our session. And he's like, this is how I get paid, hugs and kisses and love and watching this, little being grow. And he was so amazing. And it was watching this breakthrough, and it's such a big breakthrough for like part of why we're here in Feminine Power Time of reimagining the way we in the world work. Is that we have to value that, right? We have to value, this may not be making money, but this is creating value in the world 100%. And I am receiving, but just in different ways. And right now in that partnership, one is really focused in the external world and she's very focused in the internal world. And this is why in partnerships, it's also important to pause at the equinoxes as well and say, is this still an imbalance versus imbalance? Because at some point, that will be imbalanced, but not right now. And so one of the things too, for any of you out there that feel that there's parts of your life that aren't as expressed and you're, keeping responsibility for other things, just know that there's a season to that and a cycle to that. And if you practice cyclical living, you're really less likely to miss the opening that says, okay, now honey, like now, dear one, time to make a shift. What you've been doing before, A-okay. And then not to feel like you have to just ramp up at like Mach 10, but that you can rise up and use our cyclical living just like a circle to come up and around. And that's part of staying in tune with these cycles. All right, so just kind of thinking it could be projects. They could be things that really matter for you in these 9 to 12 weeks. For me, it's getting my website that has all of the work I do with teams and executive leadership coaching up onto to my website so people can see it, and the well-being sessions I do with ERGs and groups and all kinds of other stuff. And so in the cohorts I do with women leaders, where we do 4-month, 6-month cohorts with inside of organizations. So there's a lot of things that maybe you don't even know that I do, and because it's not on the website, but it's great because I have, I've been having lots of really good work come through relationships, which is basically how the feminine works. And I also want to make it more visible. So that's one of my big promises to myself. So what is one of those promises to yourself of something that really matters to you? that's about your work in the world. It could be about creative expression. There's lots of things it could be about, but just really claim that right now. This really matters to me, and I'm going to choose to put focus here. This was the conversation Noah and I just had. I was in yoga last night, and at the end of the yoga class, I realized I was really mad. I was really mad at Noah. Like, all this anger came up because in my experience, the last 8 weeks or so, he's been not maybe the last 12 weeks, maybe since I've been on sabbatical from my creatrix. He's just not been prioritizing what he says is important, which is his manifestation in the world around co-creative partnership and working in relationships. Very manifested in his work with mankind and mentoring men and young men, and he's amazing at that. That he does not get paid money for, but he gets paid in lots of different ways. And he also really would like to have more money coming in through him and putting his gifts into the world and receiving financial exchange. But he's not, in the last quarter, he hasn't been setting his life up. This has not been his priority. And so I just got really kind of mad about that. Plus, Noah has inner chaos. The house gets chaotic. So like the house has just been a mess. And so I'm just like, we have to shift. So we came home and we had a little bit more of a fiery conversation yesterday. And then today we met in the morning and had a really beautiful conversation about it. And one of the things I love and appreciate about Noah, and I think is really important in any true co-creative partnership, is that, and this can be in friendships, this could also be with the people that you work for and with, is that you take responsibility for your part. If the other person doesn't take responsibility for their part, the field of compassion and understanding and connection can't actually open. So that's what we did this morning. And it was really powerful because Noah was able to see and say, I haven't been prioritizing these things that are really important to me and to you. And so it's time for a shift. And so he's going away this weekend with his mankind leadership team. And he's going to come back, and on Monday we'll do the Equinox co-creative power pause together. And okay, then let's make a shift in this. Instead of blaming and shaming and all of that, like WTF, why haven't you done that? And we do this to ourselves, right? Like, think of the ways that you could judge yourself for all the things that you haven't done yet this year. Or maybe even like last year, looking back, I was looking back at my end of the year-end reflection, and the one disappointment I had was not focusing on my website. And here I am, 9-10 months later, and I'm like, I still haven't done that. And so this practice of the equinox, we shift, this matters, and grabbing onto it and say, actually, this matters to me, and I commit to this. If you don't grab on to the things that matter to you and commit to it, it's like they'll slip right through your fingers like sand. They just will, because the world will take, and the systems around you will just, keep swirling you around. So as we make this shift into this next part, I just want to ask you what really matters to you. And name one or two things that as I go between in this time span, this matters and this matters. This matters to me in my well-being, in your home health, wealth, and health, and practice, and then this really matters to me in my work in the world. And write those down. If you do nothing else, write those down, put them on Post-it notes, put them where you do your morning meditation or presencing practice. If you don't have one of those, make sure you go back and listen to some of our podcasts and Trade Us for Feminine Wisdom Way, because you will, by the end of the time that you're in 1 year, you will complete with a presencing practice. I can almost promise you that if you're committed. But what I care about right now is choose two things. And then the last one is, where are the twiggly danglers? Where is the twiggly dangler in your well-being that you're not paying attention to, that you know and you can feel you need to? And where is that twiggly dangler in your work in the world? Could be something that is just off, or it's an imbalance, but what are those twiggly danglers saying, hey, pay attention to me, take care of me in these next 9 to 12 weeks? So work in the world and well-being. I'm going to the dermatologist and I am pulling together my website team starting in October. So I'm committed to those two things because they are twiggly danglers, and I can feel the field saying, hey, Christine, focus on these. So what will you, from a place of self-advocacy, a place of self-love, a place of choosing what's right for you, commit to being in relationship with these next 9 to 12 weeks and taking action on? Now, we're a little over halfway here. And so what I want to just mention to you, I encourage you, and I'll mention this at the end, I encourage you to actually talk to a friend and invite that person or a colleague to listen to this, or even your partner, and do that together and share what those two things are so that you can support each other in it. Especially if it's in partnership versus being annoyed by WTF, why aren't you doing something about this? But really support each other in this, that these two things really, really, really matter. And the twiggly danglers that can help support you to actually take action on them from a place of self-advocacy. Okay. So now we're going to turn the light over to relationships and look at imbalances. So when we do the equinox power pause, normally we look in the full power pause, we look at all the different realms and look at the imbalances and do a process that helps us get really clear on where they're coming from and what change we want to have. But today I just want to do it around relationship with you, since this is a mini power pause. And so take a step back and let's look at your relationships. And so your relationship is personal, professional, individual, and community. And so you can choose two of those, let's say. Choose two of those four, professional, personal, community, or individual. And I'm actually going to break it down. I'm going to do individual and community. I'm going to do that for us. So we're going to do individual and community. And when I talk about imbalance, what we're looking for is, where is there an imbalance in the relationship? So relationship, remember, is a third party. There's you and the person, and you and the community. And community can be the organization you work for. It could be the team you work in. It could be the church you go to. It could be a nonprofit that you work with, a community that you're involved in, like Noah's involved with Mankind Group. It could even be in a just something that you do that you're part of, that's part of a meetup group or part of a passion that you have. Maybe you're a cyclist, maybe you're a potter. There's just the communities, groups that you're involved in. It could be an ERG that you're part of at work. There's lots of different ways of looking at that. So community, all those different ways, and individual. And then there's a relationship. So the relationship is a third entity. This is relationship theory, kind of 101. And that relationship has its own energy field between you and the person, and you and or the organization, group, community. So what we're looking at is the relationship, and where the energy and the effort so two things, the energy and the effort is number one. Where is the energy and or the effort exchange off between you and an individual currently? So first, looking at the individual, where is there something that's off between the give and the take, or the responsibility that you're taking on, or you're taking on more than your part, or you're giving more than you're actually receiving in return? So you don't tell anybody that you're doing this. Again, this can be professional or personal, but an individual that you know that there's an imbalance in. And it could even be like a longtime friend. For me, this is a person who's a longtime friend where the relationship has been waning for years, and I feel like I've been holding the life, keeping the relationship alive, and I've made the decision not to be the one keeping it alive, and just being able to say that. And then what that empowered me to do is be like, oh, this relationship it's not the relationship anymore. And so I'm just stepping back and releasing that relationship. I'm not releasing her. I still have deep love in my heart from her. I send her blessings. I wish her well. And if she ever needed anything, I would be here for her. And the relationship that is no longer there. And so I've released that. It's taken me several months to do that, maybe even years, honestly. But now I feel free and I feel lighter, so that I can allow other relationships to come in. It was almost like that relationship was holding up space for other connections with people who are part of my next cycle of co-creation can come in. And so that's a bigger one. This might be a smaller situation that just might be happening right now. I was just talking to a woman I do leadership coaching for, and there's a person in her bigger team, not her team she leads, but the bigger team, who he's kind of over, I call it over his skis, meaning that he's asked for a job that's bigger than he can actually do. She knows how to do the job, so he's been asking her how to do the job and then taking credit for it, as happens in the world. And we've decided, that energy exchange not going to work for her, and how to shift that in a way that she's not having to be, an a-hole about it, but that she can actually be really mindful about what she shares and doesn't, and not filling the gaps for him, and also discerning between what's actually going to create drama and disaster for the team or the organization, and what's just allowing him to support him to fail and do what he needs to do to actually get up over his skis. And so just looking at that, pick one person, and then let's do the same with a community where the energy given and the energy exchange is not time, energy, resources. It could be money, it could be time, it could be care, it could be mind share. There's just an imbalance there. And you taking responsibility for you're the one who's created the imbalance. So what I mean by that is, remember one of the core teachings of wisdom that I wrote in Overwhelmed and Over It, and as part of wisdom-led leadership, is the systems will take everything you will give it, and there will still be more to give. So we have to get into alignment with where we naturally overgive. Those are the 13 overgiving imprints. And if you don't know what those are, go to amiovergiving.com and you can take the assessment. And that's also in section 3 in Overwhelmed and Over It, Liberate Your Heart. These will give you language for how you're pouring more in than actually that is needed or is in harmony to give. And then what that does is that means it's taking energy from somewhere else. So this is what was happening with Noah. He's over giving into the Mankind Project. It's gotten to over giving because he's like, I feel comfortable there. I know what to do. I know how to do it. And these other things that I really want to do, that I really desired to do, I don't know how to totally be successful in those. It's like the unknown. One of the people I've been working with, I was mentioning, that wants a relationship and has been, pouring a lot of energy into work and overpouring. It doesn't leave time and energy for the space that's needed to actually, play in the field and ready herself to be willing and excited about what that looks like. So we all do this. I do this myself. Like, it would be really easy for me to take Feminine Wisdom Way, which is going into its 10th year, and be like, okay, we need to change this. We need to make it different. We need to do an upgrade. And we don't need to do that right now. We just need to simplify it. And the structures all work. They've been working for a decade, even longer than that, because they're tied to ancient wisdom traditions. But they work. So we're just going to give a nice facelift as we go into this 20-year period for Pluto moving into Aquarius, and just being let it show us what it wants to evolve into, versus figuring out, I have to figure out what it needs to be. So we've actually invited the whole community is helping as part of the co-creative process. And I'm being super transparent. I'm like, we're going into the 10th year, and the 10th year, the 10 is it's a completion, and it's also a start. 10 and 1, same number. So it's the beginning and the end of a cycle. And so I want to hear from the people. What do you want? What's working? Let's see, what do we need? The structure, what do we need to hold us in this co-creative field as we go forward? So it takes so much pressure off of me so that I can put energy into the other things in the realm of leadership that are really calling for my attention now. And so what are those for you that is, and I'm why I'm saying that is there might already be an imbalance for you, or there might even be an imbalance you could step into if you don't make a shift right now. It's kind of cool, right? It's like, that's what I'm doing with Feminine Wisdom. I could feel the over wanting to show up. So where do you know there's an over and it's time for a shift in your relationship with a community group, etc. And where is it maybe could happen if you don't make a shift? And write that down. So now you got one piece of paper that has I choose to focus on these two things because they really matter. And these two things, I choose to actually really, the relational individual and the relationship community, these are imbalanced. And I'll say one other thing. One of the other things that I've seen kind of a common theme is people saying I don't have local friends. I have friends that I can see on Zoom, but I don't have local friends. That's like an individual. Like that could be like, I want more individuals where I locally live at, because it's imbalanced right now. Everything is coming virtually versus in person. And so write the individual and the community down. Say, all right, I'm going to shift this and restore balance and be in the co-creative field for the next 9 weeks or 12 weeks. And then just take a breath. You just got 4 things. We can focus on 4 things at a time and not really more than that. This is when we do work with the moon cycles. Every moon we focus on what do we want to give into the world and work in the world? What do we desire to receive? Really support ourselves and our well-being, and what are the relationships that we're focused on? You can only focus on 4 things. And so you now have your 4. And I encourage you to write them down, draw a picture, make a diamond out of it, write them down, and then work with them. And the saying, the wisdom, what you focus on grows. And so the invitation from here, my dear, is to share this podcast with another being and then share your 4 things together. And then you can ask each other this question: what's the support that I need? And what's the structure I need? One of the big reasons why we don't actually make the shift or manifest the things, co-create the things into reality, is you have to have structure. And it's, what I said to Noah today is I said, I watch you with your Qigong and Tai Chi, and I've watched you with Mankind Group, and I've watched you with the well-being work that he's been doing the last year that's really given him a really beautiful full body reset. I see you can do that. You can create, you can get support. He has support in all of those areas, and you have structure in all of those areas. You don't have it in your career, in your self-expression. So how are you going to create that? And that, I just know with all my heart, is necessary, the support and the structure. These power pauses quarterly are part of it. The moon, working with the moon cycles, working with our weekly cycles, working with our daily cycles, those are all part of it. But for right now, that would be the last inquiry. What's the support and structure I need to really stay true to these commitments and make incremental progress with them? And that incremental progress creates momentum. Share it with a friend. And then what's to come? Well, my friends, I'm still still in progress with that. Remember, I said it, but Rachel's been on a sabbatical, and an equinox isn't for 2 more days. So I will, I'll share more of that. There's some things going on. I will say that there are some topics that I've been wanting to talk about for some time, around power and what I call the powerarchy, which is my understanding of what the patriarchy actually really is, and some things that I like to call it just kind of almost like the feminine unleashed, to really speak what are some things that could be helpful to all of us as we go forward. So I'm feeling into that. I'm feeling into how can we kind of travel through this transition together in these next couple months as we go through, it just feels like another crucible. And the crucible can be like a warm salt cave. It doesn't have to be like a blazing inferno. I've had enough blazing infernos myself, and I really desire the salt cave. If any of you have ever been in a salt cave, they're like, if you haven't, they're like these pink salt caves that people create. There's one here in Asheville, and they're so relaxing to the nervous system. And they glow like that rose gold color. And that is the color of grace. And so as I'm looking forward, like whatever happens, for example, with the United States election, or whatever happens with the economy or the stock market or the this or the that, like sometimes I'm like, there are gods doing whatever they're doing up there, and I cannot influence that. What I can influence is that I know I am a co-creative being who has the power, who is creating a different world. I choose to be part of creating a different way. And that doesn't mean these things don't impact me, but I don't let them influence me in a way that shifts me off my path. And that's why community, that's why I keep coming back for the feminine wisdom way. That's why I do all the things that I do, because we are stronger together, and we need fields of higher vibration, not to spiritually bypass or pretend that crazy shit isn't happening, but we need it to come together and be able to speak truth and explore things from a place of sacredness. And I've said this a million times, the word sacred means to focus on creating wholeness without violence to self or other, but with respect. And we are in a time of sacred transformation where we are releasing and healing from the past. We are stabilizing in the now, and we are creating the new. That is the triangle of transformation. You've heard me talk about it before, and they're linked to it before. It's what we're doing right now. And I just think I'm going to continue co-creating. Why wouldn't I? I've done it this long, and I'm not here to do things like everybody else. And I think many of you are also pioneers, and you know that as well. And so I will be here. We'll talk about some stuff. And I have some things that I'm looking more towards right now, March of 2025, for kind of the next cycle of what Feminine Wisdom Way is going to be. I'm really practicing what in Taoism they call Wu Wei. And it is it's effortless effort is kind of one way to kind of think of it, where you let the opportunities come to you. So I'm really committed to working with the field to show me, because I am committed to doing less and receiving more and creating a greater impact so that I can be sustained in my well-being, home, health, wealth, and practice, all of those, as well as then I can really flourish and give my work in the world for the rest of my days on this planet. I don't believe in retirement. I believe in being financially supported for the rest of my life, and also supported in my home and my health and my practice. So come back. That's what we do here. I mean, we've been doing it since the beginning. We're probably not going to stop doing that, but there are some conversations that I'm excited to have with you all and explore. So for now, sending you much love. Stay light, stay centered, and enjoy this power pause. What matters to you matters. Give yourself the gift of focusing on it and listen to those imbalances and use that co-creative power to make a shift. And don't do it on your own. Open up for support and put the structure in. And I'll see you soon. Much love.